Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Sunday Forum. This is your host, Walter L. Smith II. We are glad to have you with us this wonderful Sunday morning. And live, I'm looking at you right now. If you're live on Facebook, check us out on Walter L. Smith II Facebook page or on the Sunday Forum Facebook page. We are here with the Fourth Estate crew. What's going on, crew?
Good morning.
What's going on? What's going on? Alvaro, what's happening, man?
Good morning.
Man, we got new crew members.
Wonderful.
We got new crew members, right? We're so proud to have my main man Mark Livingston and his crew have joined the Fourth Estate on a video crew. What's going on, Mark?
Oh man.
look, Mark gave me the nod. Mark, what's going on? Everything good?
Everything is good.
All right. So we're going to talk to Mark later on. But right now, what we want to do is we have a great show today. We have a great show today because in studio today, we have gubernatorial candidate and current mayor of Tallahassee, Andrew Gillum, in the house today. We are very, very excited. And for the record, we have extended invitation to the other members of the Democratic Party who are running for governor. They were not able to make it this weekend, but they are scheduling, they're working on the schedules right now to make it in studio for us next time. But right now, our first gubernatorial candidate is going to be my main man and fellow Rattler, Andrew Gillum. So as soon as we do the announcements, that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a main man, Andrew Gillum. But right now, we got my frat brother and dear friend Albert Lee in the house today. Come on, Albert, come on. He has an announcement to make, great announcement. What's going on, man?
Hey, Walter, how you doing, man?
All right.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to come on the show. Anytime you invite us on the show, we always try to make accommodation and get here because we know it's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We try to have fun.
Yeah. I appreciate you giving us a chance to make this announcement, and you do have a great lineup, and Andrew seems to be a great guy. I just had a chance to speak with him out there.
You know, I'm president of Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation, and we've had a great run with our collaborative mixers that we started last year. And we're getting ready to have our 5th installment of our collaborative mixers on November 16th. So we wanted to make sure that we get the word out, invite small business owners. This is primarily geared towards CEOs and individuals who run and own companies. We have had a great series. This series, as our keynote speaker, Walter, we're going to have Victor. Victor runs or owns the Sarasota BMW, Lamborghini. Victor Young has been one of the stalwarts when it comes to black entrepreneurship. His dealership is down in Sarasota. He and his wife Tia do a lot of things around the Tampa Bay area.
That's why a lot of people have heard of him.
Yeah. He's been around for quite some time. I've had the good fortune of doing business with him over the years. So he's going to be our keynote speaker. We've had people like Oscar Horton, who owns Sun State International Trucking.
Yes.
My good friend Hugh owns AC4S. So we've had a number of speakers, and I mean these are guys. George Tinsley was one of our first keynote speakers. Owns the TGI Fridays and all of a lot of the concessions out at the airport and throughout the state of Florida. And I mean these are individuals whose companies are grossing in excess of 40, 50, 60 million dollars.
Wow.
So these are bona fide successful entrepreneurs, and so having somebody like Victor Young come and speak to us on November 16th is something that we're excited about. And what we do there, Walt, it's literally a networking opportunity for people who own companies. You know, it's not a social event, and we purposely bill it as not being a social event. We want people to come there, get good information, and then depart and do what we do. You know, get out there and build our community and grow your business. Andrew Ware, many of you all might know Andrew Ware. Andrew works for us, and he does a lot of the coordinating for us.
Yes.
Taisha Scantling is over in our St. Petersburg office, and she does a lot of it as well. And then, of course, my assistant, Pauline Reyes. And I tell you, I got to thank Miss Pauline's doing well, man. She's doing well. And I got to thank Miss Dee Wilkins with Impact Magazine for setting this up. And she does a lot of the public relations for us on this. So it's a group effort. It's going to be November 16th. It'll start at 6:30. Okay, and I should say 6 o'clock. Drew might jump on me if I give the wrong time. 6 o'clock, and it's over at Hillsborough Community College. Okay, we typically do it in the Ebor room. We've averaged attendance of around 200 people at each of these events. We showcase a lot of African-American caterers. And we invite them to come in, and we pay them to be there. And they get a chance to show people what they have to offer. And it's just been great, man. I mean, the people who have been involved in it have truly enjoyed it. The participants, we get great reviews on it. And by the way, Walter, it's free.
Okay.
We fork the money over, we sponsor it, and so
we can't even use the word.
Oh, we can't use
That's
the
all
word.
right. We can't use the word.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
The
All
F
right.
word.
All right.
That F word. It's only F word. There's 3 letters that we just.
Okay. Okay. There's no cost.
There's 3 letters that we can't say along with the F there.
Oh, okay.
But there's we get the point. We get the
Okay.
point. All right.
All right.
So
Yeah, but I appreciate you giving us the opportunity, Walter, to come on and talk about it. And I might just find me a spot in the corner and hang out and watch
Hey,
the
man.
show, man. You got some great people there if you don't mind.
let's do it. No
All
problem.
right.
No
Thanks
problem.
a lot. We got to get you back on my show here at some point.
Let's do it.
Real
Let's
soon.
do it.
All right.
Let's do it. Let's
Thanks,
do
man.
it. All right.
Appreciate it.
And by the way, Albert does have a show on the other station, WTMP. And what's the name of the show, Albert? Because I don't know the name of the show.
Yeah.
I want to call it the Albert Lee and P. Edwards show.
Yeah, it's Let's Talk About It.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it on 1150.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And he and Peter Edwards have a wonderful show on 1150. It's a great show. Hey, listen, we're going to take a break in just a minute, and we're going to be back with gubernatorial candidate and current mayor of Tallahassee, Mr. Andrew Gillum. We'll be right back with the Sunday Forum here on WMNF Tampa. All right. I know y'all love that music, man. Y'all love that. You like that music, Andrew?
That was great,
Yes.
man.
I thought we were listening to a smooth sound.
I'm telling
Yeah,
you.
I know.
Look what I was, yeah.
What's going on, Andrew Gillum? How you
great.
doing?
Man, I'm so impressed. What a production you have up in here.
I'm trying to tell you. Listen, let me tell you little known fact. When I was at FAM,
Oh,
yeah. See, I gotta tell it now. When I was at FAM, I remember when this man was a freshman, right?
yeah.
This little skinny
Very
freshman.
skinny, glasses.
Yeah,
I
coming
had
up to
hair.
SGA.
Oh.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Trying to figure out how you can get involved in SGA. Trying to figure out, and look at him now. Look at him now.
No hair, bigger.
But running for governor. Mayor and running for governor. Mr. Mayor, how you doing, man?
I'm doing exceedingly well, Walter. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you this morning.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here this morning. Now, look, when we come in here to Sunday Forum, there's no holds barred now.
All right,
No
I'm
holds
in.
barred. You ready?
I'm in. You don't
All
have
right.
no cold water because you don't want me messing nothing up, but it's okay.
All right. Here we go. Let's do it. Now, so, you're running for governor.
I am.
You're currently the mayor of Tallahassee.
That's correct.
The capital city of the state of Florida.
That's correct.
Okay. There's a lot that's been going on. A lot of people probably don't pay attention to Tallahassee news and what's happening in
Yes.
Tallahassee, but there have been a lot of things that have changed since I've been back home, which is my hometown, Tallahassee, to see what's going on around there. Frenchtown has changed.
Yeah.
It's had a whole revitalization thing going on. Use some brownfields money.
That's right.
Get it done.
That's right. We did.
Those who don't know what brownfields is an environmental EPA programs really that run at different levels at the state, local levels, as well as federal levels in order to revitalize communities using environmental programs to do technical training.
That's right, as well as, clean up. A
Clean
lot
ups.
of these environmental offenses have occurred, decades ago. And many of those communities, largely African-American communities, have been built and sustained over a lot of these environmentally sensitive areas that have gone for decades uncleaned,
Generations, right.
Generations uncleaned. And so we've made a real effort to try to clean some of those areas up. And, one of the things we were talking about yesterday was when you start to reinvest in a community and the community then starts to redevelop new houses, new businesses, new development, new attraction, that the important balance is to make sure you don't push some of the individuals who used to be able to afford to live there.
Right.
And a lot of the culture that used to exist there out of an area for sake of bringing in what's new. And that's been an important balance for us. And I know that's true in many of the areas for redevelopment, including here in Tampa.
Okay. All right. As we sit here and talk about this right now, we're concerned.
Yeah.
Very concerned about the direction that the state of Florida is going in.
Of course.
State of Florida is known for its citrus industry.
Yeah.
And the next governor is going to have to be able to address the issues surrounding the what was actually appeared to be the downfall in many instances of the citrus industry in terms of the biological effects, attacks basically from the worms that have been causing the issues with oranges, or other citrus for that matter. What have you heard about this?
Of course.
Tell us what your take is on that and how you plan on addressing that particular issue.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, there's obviously the impacts on citrus itself, but we also have to take, more broadly, the impacts of environmental change, environmental shift here in the state, more intense storms. Many of our groundwater being contaminated due to nitrates that are now polluting important water bodies and important environmental features, which will have, in my opinion, a pretty deleterious impact on the future development and growth of the state of Florida. We've had a governor these last 8 years who doesn't believe in global warming or climate change. Therefore, he has not appointed the first statewide commission to address these issues on how we build a more resilient state of Florida. And in my opinion, while agriculture and tourism are going to remain important parts of the state's economy, we also got to be looking around the bend around what this future economy of the state ought to look like. What is the state of Florida's role in planning for how you might say, a solar economy, for instance, the entrepreneurial economy that I believe that we ought to be stoking in the state of Florida, especially when you consider that almost 45% of the people in this state say that they cannot make ends meet at the end of the month. And so we've got industries in this state that are long-held industries that don't pay livable wages, that don't pay wages that people are able to make a way for themselves and their families. And we've been content to allow that to persist. And it's my opinion that we've got to start developing and growing and investing in the kind of industry and the kind of jobs that allow people to earn enough to take care of themselves and their families. That, in my opinion, is part of where we're going, which might include solar, which might include the next level of innovations in technology and tech jobs, which, by the way, plenty of them available, but not enough people skilled and trained in order to walk into those jobs. And don't mistake me, Walter, I don't mean people who are PhDs and engineers and master's degree holders. I'm talking about folks who might be high school graduates or high school dropouts who go on to get the skill that they need to walk into the tech jobs that exist today. So we've got a major skills gap in this state that we have to fill, and I believe that we do that best not necessarily by going back trying to prop up an industry that is a declining part of this state's economy, but thinking about what is the future growth economy in the state of Florida. And that's what's been ignored, in my opinion, over these last 20 years, and what I'd like to try to help do when elected governor of the state of Florida in 2018.
Okay. Alvaro, I know you got a question. No, Alvaro doesn't have a question. I'm saying
Alvaro don't want to be on Facebook Live.
Alvaro is scared now. Alvaro is scared.
No. Thank you for the opportunity. I just, I'm not prepared with a question.
Oh, it's okay, man.
I used to say,
It is great to be here, Alvaro. I don't know where you originally from, Alvaro. Is Tampa
Colombia.
your home? Oh,
Colombia.
Colombia.
And I am from New Jersey and from Tampa for the past 14 years.
Okay, man.
And as you know, this part of the state is going through its own migration as a result of the impact of the hurricanes in Puerto Rico. Already, I think the state has brought in some 50,000 Puerto Ricans who have reciprocity because they're U.S. citizens and can register and vote here. And the impact of those individuals are going to be big on our economy and also big, frankly, in shifting the state's political
Environment.
Absolutely.
You and me both, we hope so. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Kate?
Yes, hello, Mayor.
I'm great. Good to see you again, brother.
We took some good pictures together.
Yeah, man.
Kato been stalking you, man.
No,
we gotta talk to Kato. We gotta get
No,
that right there.
listen, I can't say enough. Honestly, I've been here a couple of weekends.
It's almost in a row, it feels like, but we did the Black Business Bus Tour
Right.
in early October, where we visited. They had I think 3 or 4
Three buses.
9 businesses.
That 9 businesses, all of them in their own way thriving. What I loved to see was the way in which this community wrapped its support around minority, black-owned businesses, in the way that even last night at the Democratic Black Caucus Gala, every one of the vendors was a black business owner, and It just to me really signified a little bit of something around how this community thinks about lifting up its local minority businesses and trying to make sure that those folks be the recipients of our money as well.
Okay. Well, that's actually a great segue. Speaking of all the businesses, as you may know, I'm a small business owner myself, with a photography company.
Of course.
I also work in education. But to me, one of the biggest areas of disequality or disequilibrium is the lack of minority businesses
Yeah.
being able to gain local and state contracts.
Yeah, yeah,
Even from Tampa on up.
yeah, I agree with you.
What do you propose to make the process more fair,
Yeah.
so that it's not just the primarily white-owned companies who are gaining these multi-million, tens of $1 million contracts, and then and then making the small black businesses and Hispanic businesses, so forth, do all the work?
Yeah, I tell you, I mean, this in 1998, 1999, Jeb Bush decided that he would end any race considerations in state higher education or in contracting.
Right.
And we've seen a very, very negative effect on that, largely for black and brown business owners and small business owners around the state who used to be able to benefit from the state's economy. If I were elected governor, we've got an $86 billion budget that runs this state and a several $billion-dollar pension.
The
That's
State Board
been
of
in question.
Administration.
That's been a big question.
Of course, well, and
Largely because, I mean, you can't point to a major black or brown road builder in the state of Florida that's doing a major portion of FDOT work. And you'll be hard pressed throughout the various sectors to find that as well. The State Board of Administration, which handles a lot of our pension, retirement, investment money, right now are able to invest those monies without any criteria around investing either in the state of Florida,
Oh, wow.
investing in minority and small businesses in Florida. That board can put that money anywhere it wants to across the country. They leverage and take bets and risks
Yes.
on California, on Chicago, on New York, and it's my opinion, we don't have to put the whole set of money that way, but we gotta have a set of that money that we say unapologetically ought to be reinvested here in the state of Florida amongst black and brown and minority and women-owned businesses, that be money that be reinvested in Florida-based companies that are hiring here, that are paying good wages here in this state. Right now, there's no criteria that be done. And I think that's a small yet important step to taking money that is generated, raised off of Floridians, and saying that we're going to put that money back into Floridians to grow Florida's economy. Not Chicago's, New York's, and anybody else's, but Florida's economy. And that's a very, in my opinion, easy and direct step that the governor and the state cabinet can take.
Because there are pockets of success, but we know if everybody's not successful.
I'm a firm believer that the rising tide lifts all boats, and economies have shown that the trickle-down effect doesn't work. That we've got to build the economy of this state from the bottom up. If working people are paid livable wages, they usually spend that money. They're large consumers. That means that money starts to recycle in community and starts to make wealthy people wealthier, quite frankly. But it also has the ability to lift folks who are at the bottom of the pay scale further up. That's the kind of economy I'd like to see work in this state. And unfortunately, we've had a governor who spent too much time giving tax breaks to the wealthiest in this state and to the most well-heeled industries in this state, and not to the working people who are the overwhelming majority of the state of Florida.
I assume a rising tide would also cause an increase in tax revenues.
Well, in this state, we don't have an
Overall.
income tax, which means the revenue increase would be from consumption. We have a regressive consumption tax, which is based off what you spend, is how the state creates additional revenue. And the state hasn't given relief to consumers. They've given relief to the largest business owners in this state and to the wealthiest in this state. In my opinion, that doesn't grow Florida's economy. It doesn't help Florida's economy, in my opinion. I think what would help Florida's economy is to create living wages and livable wages where people can work one job rather than 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Be able to spend some time with their family, maybe take a vacation once a year, and that shouldn't be too much to
Without
ask.
going bankrupt.
That's
you
indeed
should be
right.
able to take a day off of your job.
Or
without
you
worrying
shouldn't be
about
able to be
rent
terrified about
paid.
getting sick.
Yeah.
right, which is another big fear of people in this
Healthcare.
state.
How do we
Right.
shift that? Now that's another one. How do we shift that? Now that we're seeing, I think what we're seeing is a change also in who's winning what.
Yeah, well,
Who's winning in the legislature. what's legislature gonna look like in terms of Democrat, Republican, right wing, left wing, that
Yeah.
whole thing. Because in my opinion, of course, the issue of healthcare should not be a partisan issue, but of course, it is. And it's going to continue to be because at the top levels,
Yeah.
number 45, as we say here, we say number 45.
I understand.
Number 45, that's a rule here.
All right,
Number
with all respect to
is
number
not,
45.
yeah, number 45.
Yeah.
Number 45 has done everything he can to tear down ACA.
Absolutely.
And locally, what we've seen is excuses in terms of what else can we do besides doing what needs to be done with expansion of healthcare.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a firm believer that we should have accepted the money from ACA. I also say Obamacare. I know a lot of people don't like that, but once I served President, heard Obama say Obamacare, I got
It was all
over
right.
it,
It was
and I
all
said
right.
Obamacare. But nonetheless, we had the opportunity in this state to expand Medicaid for 1.5 million of the most medically needy people in this state, largely the working poor, right? These aren't people who are sitting back waiting for somebody to do something for them. These are people who get up every day, but because they have employers who superficially keep their hours on the books below 40 hours so that they don't have to provide health care, yet they're working 40, 50, 60 hours of of additional time without getting any benefit, right? And guess what that's cost this state? $51 billion since Obamacare has taken into law. And what that cost us last year was $6 billion alone. And take, for instance, if we were to accept that money into the state, what that could have meant for hiring more nurses, more doctors, more nurse practitioners, more home care workers. We could have built this state's economy and strengthened this state's economy simply by accepting those resources which rightfully belong here in the state of Florida. I am an advocate for expanded access to healthcare for all people because none of us should delude ourselves. Even those of us who have healthcare coverage by virtue of our employer or because we go out through the private system. All of us are paying for those folks who don't have healthcare coverage. Why? Because they're largely getting their healthcare through the emergency rooms, which are more expensive and less efficient, right? And while we like to think of these institutions as gratuitous, that money then gets passed along, or the cost of that gets passed along through the premiums that we pay year over year, where we have no predictability to what our premiums are going to look like from one year to the next year to the next year. So for those folks, and I say this often in my own community, who believe we're getting away scot-free because we got health care and we're okay, we're not okay, because those folks are accessing the healthcare system. Those costs are being paid, are being pushed right along to those individuals who have healthcare coverage. So it doesn't make sense. We're all in this thing together, y'all. And a healthier population is better for all of us. It expands our efficiency, our ability to work. It reduces people being terrified of getting sick, because if they get sick, they can't earn a wage. They can't earn a wage. They can't pay their bills. They can't pay their bills. Their lights go off, right? The rent or the mortgage doesn't get paid. And our economy suffers from that. And so we've got to see ourselves in a much more connected way on this issue of healthcare. If we solve this issue, this crisis in our state and in our country, it brings the ability for all working people to get a way up. And that doesn't hinder and that doesn't hurt those of us who have coverage right now. We still will keep our coverage. We'll just expand coverage for those who need it as well.
Okay.
Large numbers of people see insurance private insurance more as a way of that the system has to make money for private businesses.
Of course.
And working class people, poor working class people just wind up dishing out a whole lot of money that they normally would use for other needs of the home.
Absolutely.
So how would you address that?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, we've got, first of all, the system has to be wholesale adjusted. We have to have wholesale change in this, which is why President Obama put so much of his political equity behind ACA and getting it passed.
Hold that thought just for a moment. Folks, this is Andrew Gillum, gubernatorial candidate, the candidate for governor right now, currently the mayor of Tallahassee right now, candidate for governor of the state of Florida, in studio with us right here on the Sunday Forum. And if you want to call in, please do 813-239-9663, 813-239-9663. Please give us a call. We want you to be well informed when it comes down to going to the polls and making sure that you're making an informed decision at the polls. So, I'm sorry, go
No.
ahead.
Thank you for saying my name. I should say it more often. I am running for governor.
I got you, man, I got you.
I appreciate it, but I really am passionate about these issues, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness of the question. And the honest to God truth is that the solution on this will have to come largely from Washington, D.C. to think that we can, by ourselves in the state of Florida, solve this problem is a fool's errand. We do need the complicity, the support, the help from Washington, D.C. to say costs are out of control. Insurers and the insurance industry is largely out of control, that they can drop you at the moment that you show yourself to be a cost burden. They're happy with you so long as you're paying those year-over-year premiums and the deductibles and all that other stuff. But the moment that you rely on the system under which that you have subscribed to by paying your health care, then you become too much of a risk. And what we've got to fight against is this Republican attempt to, one, take away the opportunity for people with pre-existing conditions to get coverage, right? In the state of Florida, and the statutes of this state, for a woman to be pregnant is a pre-existing condition and therefore could be denied coverage, right? And it's nothing but the presence of ACA that keeps that from happening. So if that goes away and we rely back on the state laws, we then have an inequitable system again in this country. And my city, where everybody pays into the healthcare system, it's about 10% of that 100, about 10%, about 90% of the cost goes toward paying for about 10% of those individuals, right? And so we've got to have a much more comprehensive approach at paying for health care, at holding insurers accountable, that you can make a profit, but you don't have to, kill the rest of us in the process, right? There's a way to balance that. But we're not seeing the kind of leadership out of Washington, D.C. that we need on this
Well,
issue.
in the market, I've always been one to believe that and to see very clearly that the market has made a decision that's going to follow Washington, D.C. from that standpoint.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they feel good about what
Yes,
they see.
yeah, and the blame, of course, was always shifted onto President Obama when he was president. Oh, Obama did this, and ACA did. Obamacare did this. No, Obamacare didn't. It was the industry that made a decision to follow what this administration was doing in its favor.
Absolutely.
Doctors, I'm hearing about doctors that were not even hearing, that were taking like 5 minutes to see a client if they were under ACA.
Yeah.
So just so they can hurry up and get them out because they're not making enough money under
The reimbursement
yes, the reimbursement
Yeah.
rates. It takes so long, so to speak, but these people are doing it. It seems to be something that's done on purpose at that level.
Would there
Fixes to the system if they really wanted to fix the system. There's no doubt about that. And again, there are basic forms of healthcare that, in my opinion, every one of us ought to be entitled to. If you want to get additional coverage on top of whatever the basic level of coverage is, that's anybody's prerogative. But I think and the wealthiest nation in the world, where health impacts all of us, you being sick in this studio has the ability to get every one of us sick in this studio, right? So it's not just an individual and independent thing. We're all interwoven in this whole situation and this scenario, which is why I've been an endorser of a more universal form of healthcare for all people, and letting the folks in Washington, D.C. get to work negotiating on behalf of all of us for better rates, right? For better rates, obviously for more control of our premiums. We didn't get in this debate around healthcare for no reason. We got into this debate around healthcare because people had no cost controls. You were getting your new statements prior to ACA, and you were seeing 30, 40%, and my city 20%, 15% increases in your premiums year over year. There's no control over it. Now, why is it that a market like that, without any justification, is able to run such a roughshod over the American people? We need a much better system under which the government can negotiate prices on behalf of all Americans. It doesn't take away your ability to access health care and coverage above and beyond what the minimum is, but I believe there ought to be a minimum level of coverage for everybody, and it is not the emergency rooms, which is currently now the default position for how people get access to health care when you don't have coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. With regard to, let's talk about the prison industrial complex.
Yes, it exists.
Yeah, big time. Let's talk about the fact that, of course, what everybody knows is that there are disproportionate numbers of people who are going to jail, to prison. I just had a situation recently where a young man who was a student of mine was in Georgia and got put in jail, was framed, put in jail, and there was no knowledge in terms of in the system that he was even there. Okay, no one knew that he was there except for the fact that he picked up the phone and called, and he was smart enough to call home and say, "Hey, I'm here," and he had to quickly say Washington County, and I'm saying Washington County, Georgia. You know who you are. Washington County, Georgia, knew good and well that they had that boy there. The district attorney spoke so ugly, I say ugly, so in such a terse and nasty manner to his mother and father. But his father jumped on. I had to intercede in some way in order to help them to get, an idea of what needed to happen next. They went there, got the bail, but the bail, now here's the situation, the bail was set at $2,500. Watch this, for a car that had not been moved off the street, number one. And number two, driving without a license, which he wasn't the driver. And there was no evidence of the fact that he was a driver because he was in the house at the time the police approached. And number three, for less than 20 grams of marijuana that was not his, but was handed to him and put in his book bag. Right? Okay, so $2,500 was the bail that was set. Now, I've spoken to lawyers, and they're all like, that doesn't make any sense at all. At $2,500 of bail is set at such a high rate. But then, the bail bondsmen were trying to find a way to make more money, and it was terrible. It was just terrible what they were doing. Bottom line is, the boy was locked up in there, and we almost had another Khalif Browder situation. Guards threatening to kill him, and it was terrible. Luckily, his father and mother got up there, and they're not together. They got together, and they went up there, got that boy, bailed him out of jail, and brought him back home. He has to go back for hearing, but that is a problem.
Yeah.
That's a serious problem. And just like it happened there, it can happen here. He is from here. And we're seeing a lot of that happen in terms of bail, how much the bail is set at, the fact that some of these people are put in jails and we don't even know, a lot of times they're not even in the system. You can't find them. What do we do?
Yeah, well,
Without full knowledge of the particulars of this situation, we all know that there's a lot of money being made off the prison, the jail, the bond system in this country. Wholesale industries have been stood up off the incarceration of our young men and our young women, right? We've seen in California the school districts take efforts to say that they would no longer allow out-of-school suspension. We now have, and have seen, if y'all have seen, I know they end up in my Facebook feed all the time, situations where kids, elementary school kids, being cuffed in schools because they acted out in a classroom. Essentially, kids not allowed to be kids, right? I'm not condoning bad behavior, but there was a way that we dealt with bad behavior. Certainly when I was matriculating in this state, there are other ways of dealing with those kinds of situations, but unfortunately, we've become a culture, a nation, addicted to the prison system, to harsh punishment, obviously the inequity in how laws and sentences are come down from judges and from juries. And in this state, we have one of the most unforgiving criminal justice systems that exists, especially as it relates to individuals who have paid their debts to society, are returning to our communities, and are finding that they cannot participate in the democratic process. They can't vote. They're not getting any of their civil rights back. They've got to go before a four-person panel known as the cabinet to petition to have those rights restored. Many of them are in the pipeline for 10, 15, 20 years. And then getting snatched and put to the back of the line because they got a traffic citation in the process of waiting for the rights to be restored. It's an arcane system, but people do have a right and the ability to do something about that in the state of Florida. There is a constitutional amendment and a petition that is right now being circulated throughout the state that is asking folks to sign to get a constitutional amendment on the ballot to allow for automatic rights restoration here in the state of Florida. But the
Shout
system,
out to Desmond Meade.
absolutely. Desmond's been a relentless general on this issue. But the system writ large is deserving of massive reform. There are massive efforts at reform when it comes to the bail system, and Florida's just got to get hip to the game. We know that there's another way. We know that there's a better way. We've got to make the choice to actually take that higher road, and we haven't up to this point.
Okay, we have something that just come over the wire just now. For a second, just bear with me just for a moment. Ms. Klein,
Good
we'll give
morning.
you a chance to go ahead and ask a question here.
All right, thank you so much, and I really appreciate being here. And I just really love your delivery. But I'm very, very concerned that the base of the Democratic Party, African people that have toted that water, and the criticism that we get when we have not been back to the poll because we have not seen a delivery or a commitment from the Democratic Party. How do you plan on conveying that to the hierarchy
Yeah.
of being, say, committed to the issues of mass incarceration,
Yeah.
double-digit unemployment, the lack of affordable housing, and on and on?
Yeah, I mean, we are going to forever fail as a party in this state until we start to talk about these issues. I think the traditional status quo of our party has been to shrink from them, to not go into them because maybe they'll be perceived as controversial. Maybe we'll lose some independent voters that we may have had we not talked about mass incarceration, systemic racism, structural forms of racism, the change that needs to happen in our education system, the need for people to be able to earn a livable wage working one job rather than multiple jobs. We are as guilty and as complicit in our loss as the voters who hadn't shown up. It's my belief that you got to give people a reason to show up. You got to give them a reason to turn out and to vote. And that, off the strength of just the fact that it's their democratic process and their democratic right isn't enough to turn by and large voters out, especially when year after year, cycle after cycle, they don't see anything change. Now, as an elected official and one who has served for a long time, there are issues in our community that do feel sometimes intractable. We got to put our shoulder to the wheel and continue to work on them. And change takes time, right? Because we didn't get into this position overnight. Systemic racism didn't just show up today. Structural and mass incarceration didn't just show up today. These have been intransigent issues that have surfaced in our community for a long time. If we continue to ignore them, however, I believe the voters will continue to punish us by refusing to put us in leadership, by putting us, more of us in office. So it's my opinion, Ms. Connie, that Democrats won't have a shot at winning until we start to stand up and speak up on these issues and put forward policies that are intended to move us forward. Now, we may not cure this, and I'll tell you, if I'm blessed and fortunate enough to be rewarded as a Democratic nominee and get elected governor of this state in 2018, it's going to take more than 4 years to see the kind of change, right? But we can begin to put the wheels of change in motion. And then when we start to do that, maybe we inspire our voters enough to say, all right, this is worth getting up and going out and voting for. This is worth showing up repeatedly for at the election box to see that kind of change. I'm down for that. What I'm not down for is lip service that never manifests itself in the way of change that strengthens and that builds and heals our community. Like I said, I'm from a city where we don't do everything perfectly. We haven't figured out the perfect solutions to everything, but we have, and I can say under my leadership, have tried to put in place the kinds of changes that are of a more structural nature, not band-aids across the cut that makes us say ouch at the moment, but structural changes that set us up for changing generations, right? Not from one cycle of the election to the other. And the risk that I take is that the votes and the positions that I hold, I may not be around long enough to see the fruit be borne from that, right? I may not be able to see the complete outcome, but it's worth doing because it puts us on the right track to achieve the change we want to see over the long term.
A couple of years ago, for our alma mater, Florida A&M University, received land.
Yes.
3,500 acres.
Brooksville.
That's right,
Yeah.
in Brooksville. And that land is to be used, of course, for research
Yes.
with regard to the studies of subtropical plants, foods, animals, and research regarding how to make sure that they're disease proof,
Yeah.
the growth of these things during the change of climate and so forth. And of course, that would include citrus.
Yes.
That includes cattle. That includes all these things. Now, that having been said, your involvement, what has your involvement been with the farmers of the region,
Yeah.
number one? And number two, with regard to black farmers,
Yeah.
which is a very, very big issue here in Central Florida, with regard to black farmers and their involvement in being able to make it, their participation
Yeah.
in being able to make money and in their industry, growth and agriculture and so
Yeah.
forth. how would you address that? What's
Yeah.
the situation that you've seen first? What's your view
Sure.
on it now?
Sure.
And how would you address the challenges that they are facing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So first of all, I'm thankful that we do have such an active Black farmers constituency in this state. The Brooksville money largely came as a product of the hard work and commitment of former Congresswoman Corrine Brown, who worked extremely hard in Washington, D.C. to see that gift come back to the district and into the hands of FAMU. What I would hope Black farmers would start to turn their attention to, and I know that there's a consortium of them that are putting together an application to compete, but the state of Florida has opened up the licensing process for folks who want to do research and also participate in the farming practices when it comes to weed. Now, this state has passed overwhelmingly.
Wait, Mr. Mayor, you can't say weed. You gotta say marijuana.
Marijuana.
No, I'm just joking. I'm messing up. I'm saying you can't say weed. You personally are allowed to say weed. You have to say marijuana.
You know what? Thank you for the correction.
I'm just joking, man. I'm just joking.
Marijuana,
I'm
hemp,
just messing with
weed,
you.
there are a lot of things that it goes by, but to the extent that I've offended somebody, I apologize.
You know,
I'm talking
just
about
messing
legalize marijuana for the use of medicinal purposes.
Right.
And the voters of this state voted overwhelmingly for the expansion of licensing of individuals to access marijuana for medicinal purposes. They have been very, very constrained in who gets those licenses. In my opinion, and I've been critical of this, in my opinion, appearing to set up sort of monopolies when it comes to it. Now that they've started to expand the number of licensing to the Black farmers, I would say, we've got to get our act together, pull together the coalition, and I understand there is one under work that goes in and applies for one of those licenses. Because we may be talking about medicinal use of marijuana today, but who knows what the future of that industry holds 5, 10, 15 years from now. If you're one of the growers, if you're on the side of the growers and even the researchers, right? We don't know everything we need to know yet around what are the most applicable and helpful purposes for marijuana and medicinal marijuana and its impacts on creating a more healthy Florida, right?
Absolutely.
And so because we don't know what we need to know, in my opinion, Brooksville ought to be trying to compete for some of the research and development around the future uses of marijuana for medicinal purposes in the state. Should there become a point where Floridians say that they want to go to a recreational use, we ought to be on the innovative side of what that looks like.
Right.
We've seen what it's done to Colorado's economy, what it's doing in the state
Billions.
of California. I'm telling you,
Billions.
people are getting rebate checks in that state, right? Because of how the industry has overperformed even their estimates, right? And so when you're talking about a state that does not have a state tax, a state income tax, and that our revenues are really constrained to our fees and our consumption taxes, there is an interesting avenue of future revenue for the state of Florida. And so directly to Brooksville, I would say we've got to be thinking about what role it plays in the future of that economy. And for our Black farmers and the Black Farmers Association, what role they play, frankly, in becoming part of the growers, because the state has already said and has already limited the number of growers. So there will be, if not a monopoly, there will be a constrained number of growers. Those growers would then have to couple with distributors. And then those distributors will then have to couple with retail operations where folks are able to then go and patronize them and get their prescriptions filled. And again, if this evolves into recreational use, those will be the places where folks are able to then access that. So there's a whole vertical structure here that Black farmers have got to be thinking about what role they play, as well as at the new farming site that exists under the control of Florida A&M University, what research and development they can do as it relates to marijuana.
You have some more time to stay with me?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about, man.
I think so.
That's
We
how
got
fam units do.
That's right. Okay, they'll tell us when. But
That's how fam units do, baby. We sit around, we help
That's right.
each other.
Shout out to the rap.
Hey, listen, we're going to come back with gubernatorial candidate and current mayor of Tallahassee, my man, Andrew Gillum. We're right here on WMNF Tampa with the Sunday Forum with your host Walter L. Smith II, the voice of the Tampa Bay area with the members of the Fourth Estate. We have our questions and you have your questions, and we have the lines lit up right now. We're going to answer those people. If you're on the line, please hang tight.
Yes.
Phone number is 813-239-9663. Please give us a call. Thanks, Don. Oh, no. That's my son.
Okay.
You usually see it with me.
The music of Solomon Burke here on the Sunday Forum, WMNF Radio 88.5 FM. We're back.
All right. We are back with the Sunday Forum. This is your host, Walter L. Smith II, the voice of the Tampa Bay area, along with the Fourth Estate members. And we have in studio with us current mayor of Tallahassee and actually gubernatorial candidate for the state of Florida, my man, Andrew Gillum.
What's up, man?
What's up, man?
How you doing?
All right. How you doing?
Sounds funny. We're asking each other. We've been on the radio for what, 20 minutes? Did I forget to ask you how you doing earlier?
Yes, you did.
I'm
and
sorry,
that's,
man.
You know, I'm hurt.
Well, you look like you're doing well.
Thank you, brother.
All right.
Thank you. No,
That's
just
why.
That's
That's Reverend Dixon over there talking trash in the corner over there. He'll be on in the next hour here. Listen, couple more questions.
Yes.
Folks, we got to go to the phone lines. Folks, we're going to keep you, when you call in, please, make sure that you go directly to your question. You have 30 seconds to ask your question, and Mr. Gillum's going to go ahead and answer your question as quickly as possible because he has another engagement he has to go to.
Church.
Let's go ahead. He got church. Not an engagement, you got to go to church. All right. So let's go ahead and hit those phone lines.
Yes, let's get the phone lines. It's 813-239-9663 to join this conversation here on the Sunday Forum. It looks like we have Fred Hearns out of St. Petersburg joining us.
Fred Hearns, what's happening, Fred? Hey, Fred, what's going on?
Everything is great. Wonderful show, man.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mayor Gillum, on your quest.
Thank you.
Really good to hear you, and I know you've been spending a lot of time in the Tampa Bay area.
I have.
My question has to do with West Tampa and the future of West Tampa, and specifically the black businesses along the Main Street, Howard Avenue corridor. Really concerned about those businesses. Those are some brave men and women who have hung in there, who have kept their doors open, in spite of the fact they've lost many of their past customers because of the housing patterns and so forth. But in your travels around the state, what specific best practices can you recommend that we look at here in Tampa to help those black businesses who often are rejected by the banks when they go in for loans because they don't have adequate collateral, and for the loss of their customers, and for those who are trying to hang in there and keep their doors open, as we know redevelopment is coming to the West Tampa area. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock there's a very important meeting at the old Armory Jewish Community Center concerning the West Tampa CRA Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
So businesses and property owners to come out tomorrow to the Armory at 6. But what best practices can you point to that we can look towards for economic development, keep those black businesses open so they can hire more of our residents?
Yeah, that's it. I appreciate the depth of your question, and it's one that many communities are faced with all around the state of Florida, my community included. I understand that there's probably a community redevelopment agency overlay over this particular area, which, different CRAs have interpreted what they can do under statute differently. I have always been an advocate for a little bit more of a liberal application of how the CRA allows us to use funds. So some interpret the term blight to mean, busted out windows and dirty landscape and that kind of thing. I also believe in such a thing as economic blight, wherein that the businesses that exist there are, as you described, are struggling, trying to keep their doors open, may have difficulty accessing loans, I would strongly encourage that one of the practices that we have amongst one of our CRA districts for a lot of our local small minority businesses is a facade improvement program. So we don't actually take the money and put it inside the building edifice itself, but if it's a building that deserves to be updated, maybe new signage, maybe new paint job, maybe different parking that makes it more aesthetically pleasing, you can apply for a grant program where we will fund, I believe it may now be up to like $50,000 of a facade improvement. You then have to put some money in on your end as well, and then you're able to improve just the outside edifice of a place that might give a different signal to folks around how to patronize it. Our CRA districts can also do things like provide for additional walkability in a particular area, maybe planting of different trees, laying new sidewalks so that it's walkable, just cleaning up an area in such a way that it says, man, this is a destination place.
Right.
This one area in my city that we have called Gain Street, which is kind of between FAMU and Florida State. That area used to be a brownfield. When I was a student matriculating at FAMU, it's where all the little clubs and the warehouses weren't good uses at all. We put $20 million into changing that landscape there, and now today it has yielded over $700 million of private sector investment, right? In the Frenchtown area, it's been a bit of a balance in Tallahassee because it's an old historic black community. We want to make sure that the residents who live there today are able to live there and afford to live there in the future. It was a little bit controversial, but we approved an affordable housing unit to go into the area. Some of the neighbors in the area said, we didn't want affordable housing, we want upper income housing. And our argument is that when you attract that kind of housing into an area, we can't superficially suppress the taxes. So the taxes start to increase, and then the people who live in those areas can no longer afford to call those areas home. So we have to be careful what we wish for and what we ask for. What I would say a request might be is, how do we stabilize the neighborhood? How do we create additional affordable housing in there? How do we do things like facade and grant improvements, create micro lending programs through the CRA that allow those folks to access loan money to be reinvested in the businesses, loan money that they right now might not be able to get if they were going to open market.
Okay, all right. Let's go to the
Long
next.
answer, sorry about that.
That's all right. Hey, man. You welcome. It's all good. Hey, let's go to the next call.
Certainly, it's Chris. Chris is on the road.
Chris, let's go. What's happening, Chris? Hey, man.
Mr. Porter Normal, how you doing, man?
All right, man. What's going on with you, Kato?
Here right now, trying to get to Miami.
Go ahead, man. Go
Travel
ahead. Be
safely.
careful. Watch that muck, man.
Watch them gators.
In regards to looking to the future with medical marijuana in Florida, with FAMU starting this industrial hemp project and really making a new Florida-grown industry. But there are some shortcomings, in particular to sick people, and I wanted to know as governor, would he address some of them? For example, state employees get drug tested. If you're currently a medical marijuana card holder, you can still lose your job, you can still be precluded from a job, and you can also be denied an organ transplant in the state of Florida. I just lost my aunt 2 weeks ago to liver failure, and her biggest fear was that she would not get a liver, and she was denied anyways. But the fact of the matter is that if we could have treated her, so these are some of the shortcomings in regards to worker protection and patient protection that we need addressed in the state. And I wanted to make sure that Mayor Gillum was aware of them and that as governor they would address them.
No, you're absolutely right. There are still strong limitations federally and federal policies around how it is we treat on the patient side individuals who use marijuana for medicinal purposes, and whether or not transplant laws federally allow them to stay on the list. And you are correct right now, it is a prohibitive, which is why we've got to do federal legislation as well as state legislation to see what we can do to change laws to make them more patient friendly and to make exception for the kind of new medicinal use for medical marijuana. To your first part, I hope you better not be able to be fired in the state of Florida for drug testing, because in the courts that got struck down. And if that practice is taking place, you need to see a lawyer ASAP to make sure that the law is being applied properly. But y'all will remember Governor Rick Scott attempted to drug test employees in the state. And the courts struck that down. I hope I'm understanding the caller correctly. It should also be the case that when the state results in its new structuring of medicinal use of marijuana, that the laws in the state should be expanded such that if you are a user for medical purposes and are a state employee, that you're given grace because it's medical and not recreational. And the laws ought to reflect that.
All right, all right. When we talk about that issue, one of the things that struck me was, I've had this conversation before where my concern was, once legalization takes place,
Yeah.
there will be other venues, if you will, or other snakes in the bushes waiting. Other rules and regulations that'll be there in order to put people in jail for something, you know? So in other words, illustrate it. If we were to juxtapose the same concept of marijuana with the pill mills, if you will, okay? There were some very stringent laws that were put in place for the pills and the use of those things, oxycodone, whatever the names of those things. I'm not a pharmacist, so I don't know the names, but all the different drugs that are out there that are painkillers that people use. Now, there are some very stringent laws that are out there that say in one situation, 5 years per pill sold. And so, you know, people are thinking, oh, I'll go in there, I'll go get some pills. And they're thinking it's going to be, you know, they'll go in there, they'll go in with a prescription, get the pills, and then they're good. But there are those who are out there that are thinking, okay, I'll just be able to use someone's pills or whatever, and we're okay. But there's a law that says that you can't do that, and that's illegal. Okay, now, if we take the same thing with marijuana. With marijuana, you have a situation where you have a legalization of medicinal use. And so those people who are not reading the rules and regulations will say, oh yeah, it's a free-for-all now. They're thinking, don't do that. Because I'm trying to tell you, there is something out there that will get you, some people out there that are watching, they will get you, and they're putting the laws in place to make sure that you aren't doing recreational use, and your recreational use will land you in prison.
Yeah, let's be clear. The laws of the state right now are strictly medicinal. And by the way, you can't claim medicinal use just because you bought it on the street and you say you use it for medicine. That's not going to work.
That's the age-old reason right there.
I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure that will land you in jail. Don't do that. What we're talking about is obviously you get a prescription just as you would any other medical use and medical purpose. We're not at the point in this state yet where we have approved recreational use. I do have a feeling that probably will come down the pipeline at some point. I guess if there were a good thing here, it is that Florida isn't necessarily pioneers in this space. There have been other states that have set up regulatory environments around medicinal use of marijuana and recreational use of marijuana. Highly regulated industry, highly taxable industry, and the areas that have gone into it. And so we're not having to figure this out for the first time. We can learn from the states that have already preceded us in this new journey around medicinal marijuana, and learn best practices so that when we institute and as we instituted in the state of Florida, we can avoid certain pitfalls. But I'll tell you, almost with any vice out there, I mean, you take alcohol, there are more people who are dying from alcohol-related deaths, whether it's in a vehicle, whether there are you become an alcoholic, and therefore things result from that. So anything, obviously, and over usage can be a bad thing, and we haven't yet found a medical purpose for the use of alcohol. Right now, you have for the purposes of marijuana.
Oh, you got a cold.
Right? You got a cold. He's talking about a hot toddy.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if that's medical yet.
They say it was. My grandmama said it was.
My grandmama said it too.
Right,
she wasn't a doctor.
I have a cold every weekend.
Right? We got two more calls. Right here. Let's get these calls out.
Okay.
And I know he has to leave.
He has to leave. Can we do one more?
We'll take
We can't.
Yeah.
Hey,
We'll take
listen.
one more and I will go. I'm sorry to veto what they said. We'll take one last
Can
one.
I
All right.
get him to chime in on the idea of shakedown towns, and in terms of using traffic laws and maybe even the marijuana laws to continue to use the laws to raise budgets
Yeah.
in local communities. What about that?
Yeah, I think it's very unfortunate the communities that are still, and largely this happens at the local level, but it can happen through the state troopers. But it's really important that, and especially in this day and time where we're trying to build additional and added trust amongst the citizens and law enforcement entities and agencies, that we not high quotas in our systems. That, you know, we're not saying, oh, in order to make budgets, you got to arrest or pull over 20 people or 25 individuals. And given the moment that we're in, where we're trying to build and strengthen trust between law enforcement and citizens, I would encourage all law enforcement agencies and entities to be thoughtful around how they have judicious application of the law. Not gotcha laws, but judicious application. And we got to recognize these are difficult jobs that these individuals do, dangerous work that they do. And in order for them to do this work and to do it safely, I would argue that we side on the side of common sense, common and just application of the law, not discriminative applications of the law, and that will endure, I think, greater public will between the public and also law enforcement, that over the long term is a better outcome for communities as well as for law enforcement.
Real quickly, the Democratic Party seems to be renovating itself from the bottom. But what about the top? It seems like the same old stale and very untrustworthy people are still there.
Well,
Clinton, Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, without going into that, I'm trying to renovate the top of the party by getting elected governor of the state of Florida and changing the organization from that point and everything that flows from it. The party has got to wake up to the new realities that we're in. We cannot continue to run these Republican-like campaigns, running campaigns as if we as Democrats don't have something to stand firmly on and stand firmly for. If we keep running those kinds of races, we're going to keep getting what we've always gotten. And in this state, that means 20 years of losses in the race for governor. We lost the last 2 races for governor in this state by fewer than 1 point. Fewer than 70,000 voters in a state of 20 million people decided who would be the governor of the state of Florida. If we want to win again, we need to give our base a reason to show out, to show up, to come in advance, and to bring 5 or 10 friends with them so that we can take back the state of Florida. That's the only way we're going to be able to do it. If we keep doing what we've done, we're going to get what we've always gotten. I'm really apprecitive, Walter,
Hey,
of
man,
the opportunity.
It's good
Thank
to see
to
you
the
again.
listeners, and
I keep
I'll be
seeing that
back.
freshman. I keep seeing that freshman when I see
Oh
you.
man,
I'm
about to have
hey,
my
man.
freshman hair back. I take it. It is what
It's
it
good
is.
to see you, brother.
All right.
Thank you very much
Ball's
for joining.
in.
We're gonna take a break. We'll be right back, and we're gonna be talking housing and community development here on the Sunday Forum. We have Diane Hart. We have where's Coach? We have Coach Willie Dixon in here. Hey man, we're about to get down to it. All right, here on the Sunday Forum with the host Walter Smith II. We'll be right back. All right, we are back in the Sunday Forum. This is your host, Walter Smith II, the voice of the Tampa Bay area, in studio here on WMNF 88.5 FM. We have Diane Hart. We have, you on with, jump. Oh boy, we got, wait a minute, you gotta step in front of the camera, man. Hold on, you gotta say hey to everybody on Facebook Live. The Nation of Islam has just walked in, bro. Oh, we are done this morning, boy. I'm telling you right now. What's going on, brother Minister Chad? What's up, brother? How you doing now? All right. So we have, Connie Burton. We have my man, Coach Willie Dixon. What's going on, Real?
I'm the co-host, so
He's there. He didn't think he'll have his time. He's gonna have his time. Brother Chad, what's going on, y'all?
I'm good, brother. Glad to be here. I'm just in support. Hey, look, all this in one room. Like power in one room.
Family in the day, man. That's all right.
back up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, man. We about to have church up in here.
Well,
Hey, man. You can address it now. Well, we ain't had time to address it, We had time to address it like we wanted to. You come in here today, complaining.
We're going to, John would say, we're going to hit it and quit it with our remarks and our questions.
That's right.
But we have a lot of development issues that are taking place right now in the Tampa Bay area. I think we all agree on that, okay?
That's right.
The issue right now is how do we address those development issues? How do we identify them and how do we address them? When I say address, I mean what are the solutions? Okay, Rev, let's start with you. Let's start with you.
How do we address the solutions? Well, first of all, things that are happening now in Tampa didn't happen by osmosis or by mere happenstance. If we go back some years ago, when Mayor Poe to the present mayor, all of the things that you see taking place now were a part of, I hate to use the word scheme, but I think it was a scheme.
It was a scheme. And Mayor Poe, let's make sure we're clear on that. Mayor Poe was the mayor of Tampa.
That's right.
And up until the current mayoral administration.
And I'm glad that Diane is here too with me, because they used and manipulated the nonprofits to help this gentrification that took place in West Tampa. And some of the things I can say on air, and some of the things I won't, because some people went to jail.
Absolutely.
It wasn't you.
It wasn't me.
Oh, okay, so we ain't worried about it. We can say it here on the Sunday Forum.
But I
Let's say it.
appreciate what Reverend Dixon just
Let's
laid
call
out,
it.
because I think we should be at a point of time that we can deal with the truth, figure out what we did as African people wrong to participate in the demise that we see happening now.
Absolutely.
And so part of the problem that we've had black faces at the table that has not represented the interests of black community, and for a lot of time we've been silenced. We wouldn't say anything. I remember when Ed Turanchik was toting out the Civitas plan to tear down Central Park Village and Tampa Park Apartments. People was afraid to even organize against that, would not say nothing against that.
Why? Why were they afraid?
Because some black folks have vested interests, even if it's peanuts, nickels, and dimes. And so, and the masses of the people that have to utilize these housing entities, they're afraid of the repercussion that if they do organize the possibility of getting evicted, it is real. But I've always stood on the shoulder of what's right.
Amen.
And even if it's a cause of consequences that we might have to lose some, the majority of us will win. Even when our people see us standing firm against injustice. I remember Bob Buckhorn being able to go throughout all this city, throughout the black community, kiss and hug many of these ministers and nonprofits. And now they can't hardly get a phone call from him, because he has a vision of what's going to make a better life for Bob Buckhorn as the mayor and Bob Buckhorn the private citizen.
And his children and his children's children.
Yes, sir. So right now we at the threshold. You know, like when Brother Fred Hearn, I saw him yesterday, and he said, you know, we got to figure out how we're going to help the black businessmen down in West Tampa. Brother Al Lee was in here this morning talking about black people and the black consortium of whatever they're putting together. But what they fail to realize, it is the black workers that's going to be able to hold all of this stuff together. Because had not the black people been pushed out of West Tampa, the black businesses down in West Tampa would still be able to eat. But they can't eat now because they're waiting on a rainy day, a better day that has been spent off to them that might not come to them.
So rainbows and sprinkles.
Exactly.
And stuff like that.
So, you know, if you were down there selling soul food and you ain't got nobody coming to buy anything, you just got spoiled food at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Soul
so
food, spoiled food.
I said, you know, like the train
right
might have left the track. And white people got to come to these terms. If they want to live in a world where they only entertain with themselves, I am not going to interject myself into that. If they want a white world downtown and an all-white, what they consider to be West Tampa, I say let them have it. Because we have the opportunity to build East Tampa and hold our ground. Now that's where I'm at. I am not for forced integration. I am not for begging anymore. We're at a point in time that we got to save ourselves so our children have an understanding what black entrepreneurship really look like. I think we can do that right here in East Tampa.